The battlefield smelled of ash and burnt ozone. Smoke still curled in lazy spirals from the craters where artillery fire had torn the ground apart. Once, it had been farmland on the colony world of Heartfelt, rolling plains, golden crops, and a river that cut the land into winding shapes. Now, it was a wasteland scattered with wreckage, broken armor, and the silence of the dead. Sergeant Kael trudged through the desolation, his pulse rifle slung over his shoulder. His unit had been ordered to sweep the area for survivors, though command hadn't really expected any. The fight here had been brutal, between the invading Korthani and the desperate defenders, humans and their reluctant allies, the Phyrexian warrior caste. Daniel had learned long ago that wars were never just about who had the biggest fleets. Wars were about the ones left crawling through the dust when the admirals declared victory. That was when he heard it, a low, ragged rasp carried on the wind. Daniel froze, dropped into a crouch, and raised his weapon, scanning the wreckage. Another sound followed, a choking breath, weak but alive. He moved toward it, boots crunching over glassed soil, until he spotted her. She was a Phyrexian warrior, unmistakable even slumped in the wreckage of her shattered exo-armor. Her frame was massive, nearly 7 feet of muscle, scales, and battle scars. Her species were born for combat, feared across the galaxy for their strength and ferocity. But now she looked broken. Her armor's spinal frame had snapped inward, pinning her body in a cruel bend. Her legs didn't move. Her golden eyes locked on him. They were wide, filled with the fury of someone who refused to believe she was helpless. "Human," she hissed, her voice guttural, her native tongue layered with pain. "Finish it. Kill me. Do not leave me like this." Daniel lowered his rifle slightly. "You're still alive. That's good enough for me." "I cannot walk," she spat, coughing blood. "A Phyrexian who cannot fight has no place. My kin have already abandoned me. Do not mock me with false hope." Daniel knelt beside her, ignoring the reek of burnt circuits and blood. He pulled his med kit free and started scanning her injuries. Spinal trauma, crushed armor, internal bleeding. Ugly but not impossible. "You're not dead yet," Daniel said firmly. "So I'm not leaving you." Her eyes narrowed. "Why? What honor is there in dragging a useless warrior?" "Because that's what humans do," Daniel replied, injecting her with a stabilizer. "We don't leave people behind, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." The middle, a fragile alliance. Moving her wasn't easy. Daniel had to pry open her armor with a plasma cutter, piece by piece, until the bent frame no longer crushed her. Every cut made her flinch, but she refused to cry out. When her body was finally free, he rigged up a makeshift stretcher from scavenged plating and wrapped her wounds as best he could. She watched him the entire time, her expression caught between disbelief and stubborn pride. "You risk your life for me," she growled when he hauled her onto the stretcher and began dragging her toward the extraction point. "Why? I am not human. My people do not even value me anymore." Daniel grunted as he pulled. "Doesn't matter. We're here. You're breathing. That's enough." Hours turned into days as they crawled through the ruined plains. Daniel rationed his water, giving her half. He shared his rations, even though her metabolism demanded more than he could offer. Sometimes she snapped at him, telling him to leave her, that he was wasting his strength. Other times, when fever overtook her, she whispered words in Phyrexian he didn't understand. Names, maybe prayers. On the third night she asked him a question. "Human, do you have a name?" "Daniel Kael," he answered, too tired to embellish. "I am Karine, daughter of Phyrexian line Varshak," she said, her voice quieter than usual. It means nothing now. My line will not claim me, broken as I am. Daniel chuckled faintly. Means something to me. Now I know who I'm talking to. She studied him for a long time before speaking again. Among my people, a paralyzed warrior is exiled, left to die in the wastes. It is mercy. But you fight against the inevitable. Why? Daniel stopped pulling for a moment, leaning on the makeshift sled, sweat dripping down his brow. He thought of the war back on Earth, the battles he'd survived, the faces of soldiers who hadn't. Because I know what it's like to feel abandoned, he said quietly. And I swore I'd never do that to anyone else. Doesn't matter if you're human or not. Karine stared at him, her golden eyes softer than before. For the first time she didn't argue. Trial. On the 5th day, trouble found them. A Korthani patrol, alien invaders shaped like insectoid nightmares, swept across the ruins. Daniel spotted their armored carapaces glinting in the sun, their long rifles clutched in clawed hands. Too many to fight head-on. Stay quiet, he whispered to Karine, pulling her sled behind the burnt husk of a transport vehicle. But the patrol spread out, antennae twitching, and soon they were surrounded. Daniel raised his rifle. He knew he couldn't win, but he wasn't going to let them touch her. He fired the first shot, dropping one of the insectoids in a burst of plasma. The others hissed and opened fire. Karine snarled, trying to rise despite her useless legs. Put me down. Leave me. Save yourself. Not happening, Daniel snapped, rolling to avoid a barrage. His rifle barked, taking down another. But there were too many. Energy bolts scorched the ground around him, and a searing pain tore across his shoulder as one clipped him. The Korthani closed in. One raised its serrated blade, chittering in triumph, and Karine moved. Though her legs were dead weight, her arms were still strong. With a roar, she seized a jagged piece of her broken armor and hurled it like a spear. It punched clean through the Korthani's chest, dropping it instantly. Her defiance shocked the others, giving Daniel the opening he needed. He fought like a man possessed, driven not by survival but by the stubborn vow he'd made. One by one, the aliens fell until the survivors fled, hissing in frustration. When it was over, Daniel collapsed beside her, bleeding and gasping. You're insane, Karine muttered, but her voice carried something new, respect. And you're still a damn warrior, Daniel said, wincing as he pressed a hand to his wound. Don't let anyone tell you different. The ending, a strange gift. By the 7th day, they finally reached the extraction zone. Human medevac ships descended through the smoke, and soldiers rushed to help them aboard. Daniel nearly blacked out from exhaustion, but he saw the looks of shock on his comrades' faces when they realized who he had saved. A Threxian, one whispered. Why the hell did you bring her? Daniel glared through his haze of fatigue. Because she's alive. And that's all that matters. Karine was taken to medical facilities, where human doctors stabilized her. They could not restore her legs. Not yet, but they kept her alive, something her own people would not have bothered with. Weeks later, as Daniel recovered from his wounds, a visitor came to his quarters. Karine entered, her massive frame now supported by an advanced exoskeletal brace built by human engineers. It wasn't perfect. Her steps were slow, mechanical, but she was walking again. In her hands, she carried something wrapped in dark cloth.